How you guys doing? My name's Sean. That's Cameron. This is a new podcast we're starting. It's called the Lockdown Podcast. We're going to be talking about sports and different types of sports, basketball, football. We may do some baseball. I'm not really huge on baseball. That's more Cameron. I'm big on MMA, so I might talk MMA sometimes, but we'll see what happens. But first off, want to say I hope you guys have a great weekend and hope everybody stays safe. So let's get into this. This first episode, we're going to do both AFC and NFC, but it was going to take way too long. So we're actually going to break it up into two parts, AFC and NFC. So for the first part today, we're going to do the AFC North and AFC South. So let's get started. Cameron, do you want to start off, and then I'll go back and forth with you?
Yeah. So let's start with the AFC North. So rankings-wise, I have the Baltimore Ravens placing first in their division at
Makes sense.
12 wins and 4 losses.
Okay.
Next up, it's a flip for – it's a 50-50 for second place. There's a lot of variables that I'm considering, and it's pretty obvious who's tied for second in the division between Cleveland and Pittsburgh. Now, normally, people will go with Pittsburgh, because of their offensive dominance and their chemistry. And, based on last year, they had a ruthless defense led by TJ Watt and their newly acquired safety. So, they're a pretty lethal team, but Minka Fitzpatrick, it was just losing my train of thought. But I feel like the Cleveland Browns, now that, Baker has a not so much proven, but a legit new coach in Kevin Stefanski, I think they're going to be able to utilize their weapons on offense, much more beautifully with, new schemes and, new plays. So, between Cleveland and Pittsburgh, it's going to be tough, but I'm going to give the edge to Pittsburgh at the moment, assuming that Ben can stay healthy. And if he does play the full season, I can imagine the Steelers, playing for a final playoff spot, which is going to be easier now that the NFL has expanded their playoff format. So I see the Pittsburgh Steelers going 10-6. Cleveland Browns going 9-7. So, it could be 10-6 as well. It could swap. So we'll just see how the season goes. And then finally with Cincinnati, they're just in rebuild mode right now. And, fortunately they're able to get a pretty, proven prospect in Joe Burrow, to lead the team. And he looks pretty legit, but, it's going to take a lot to, overcome, the schedule they face, especially in a tough division like that with Lamar and, Baker and Ben. So it's going to be a tough uphill battle for the Bengals, but I see them, improving upon their schedule, but not really having a definitive successful season. So
right.
I say Cincinnati goes 5-11.
That's pretty generous.
Yeah, very, very optimistic for Joe and company, but I see them going 5 wins.
Well, the big question is AJ Green also going to be healthy? If AJ Green's not healthy, then I don't know. I mean, they have T. Higgins, but he'll be a rookie. I do like Joe Mixon, though. He's good. He's
proven
running back. But that's kind of where I'm at on my rankings. So my rankings, I had the Ravens and then the Steelers and then the Browns and the Bengals. So with the Ravens, they add DJ Fluker, Derek Wolfe, good defensive end. I should know. We play him twice a year. When we played him, he was pretty good. And one big acquisition they got was Calais Campbell from the Jaguars.
Yeah.
That dude is a beast, and that's gonna only make their pass rush even more deadly, especially re-signing Judon. And then they lost they only lost Hayden Hurst, that's notable, and Tony Jefferson. But when you look at the draft, they draft Patrick Queen. I really wanted my team to get Patrick Queen. He was just sitting there. We didn't grab him. The Ravens got him. He could be a stud. He could rush the passer. He can cover. Good tackler. And then another underrated draft pick they did was Malik Harrison out of Ohio State. I also wanted my team to draft him. He was high on a lot of people's boards. But they only lost Hayden Hurst, Tony Jefferson, notably. If you look at their schedule, it's pretty favorable. It only looks like I only have them losing about four games, maybe three, if that. I have them going 12-4 with the over and under 9 wins, just because I don't do over and under too high on that. But if you want, we could one game that I'm a little iffy on. I don't know if they'll win, they'll lose, is that game against the Browns in the Browns home stadium. I'm really iffy on that because sometimes the Browns have the Ravens number. Even though the Ravens did so good last season, the Browns still beat the brakes off them that one game, if you remember. But I'm going 12-4, and that's for the Ravens. I'll be the number one in the North. And with the Steelers, I'm actually different from you. I have them going 8-8. Now they added Eric Ebron. They got Chase Claypool from the draft. He was a big receiver. He's been compared to could be like Julio Jones. We'll see about that. I'm not really sure. Derek Watt from the Chargers. He's a fullback, so I mean he'll make a impact in the blocking game. And then Stefan Wisniewski bolster up their offensive line, which is pretty good. I know they're getting Big Ben back, but I guess the question is he going to be like really healthy? I know he was started throwing again, but I think he injured his shoulder. I think is that what he did?
Yeah,
yeah, his shoulder. Sometimes that's hard to come back from. But I don't know. They have a pretty good schedule, but again, you just
an
don't know.
elbow
I mean, that
injury.
defense, elbow. Ew. Yeah. Well, if it's his throwing arm, then that might be difficult. But
yeah, it's his right elbow. Yeah,
right elbow. So it is his throwing arm. So I mean, we'll see. Maybe he could still throw really well. Maybe he just can't, take the top off like he usually would. And they still have Juju. They have Washington, Connor Cook. He's pretty good running back. Is it Connor Cook? James Conner. That's what Connor Cook's quarterback. I think in the XFL. I mean, their schedule is pretty favorable. I guess it just depends on how Big Ben does. I mean, if he's not fully healthy, then I think teams are going to stack the box and they're going to shut down James Conner and force Ben to win games, which I know he can do. I mean, you do have to take into account Mike Tomlin. He's one of the better coaches in the NFL for sure. He doesn't really lose, and that defense it's pretty stacked with Minka and T.J. Watt. Who else is on that defense? Hayward, I think. Cameron Hayward, is he on that defense? I think Hayward was on that defense. But they're all around really good. One game that I was looking at that I wasn't quite sure on, and you also, when you think about it, you have to really think about the division. Divisional games are they're never usually one-sided. Like they could be shootouts, they could be close defensive battles,
Mm-hmm.
Like you never really know with a division game because teams get up for division games.
Yeah. And the main goal for most teams is not, it's not usually getting a playoff spot, it's winning their division first and foremost.
Well, yeah, if you win your division, you automatically get into the playoffs.
Yeah.
Now, sweeping your division is a different game. You could still get out of the playoffs even if you sweep the division. Pretty sure the Raiders did that one time, didn't make the playoffs. But if you look at their schedule, it's for the most part pretty. I mean, they play the Ravens, the Cowboys. Cowboys might be pretty good this year.
Might I add too, the strength of schedules for the upcoming season, the entire AFC North ranks in the bottom 5, 6 of easiest schedules. So
Really?
all 4 teams have a pretty easy schedule with the Ravens. Last year's Super Bowl favorites. Having the easiest schedule of them all, with facing a field that only had 112 wins to 144 losses in 2019. So, they're looking pretty, having a coastful kind of season. But things change. Teams get better, teams get worse. But looking at
I could
that
definitely
picture,
see them from that 8-8 to 10-6 mark. Honestly, depending on how Roethlisberger does. I don't know if they throw Mason Rudolph in there, how good they would be. And
I
last
think
season they did pretty well without big men, but
yeah, I think no matter who's at quarterback, I think they will manage, as long as their defense stays, consistent and, powerful, because I feel like a lot of teams prior who have been very successful, rode the back of their defenses, like Denver Broncos, Seattle Seahawks, even though they had Russell Wilson. Recently the Niners, they rode on the back of. Yeah, so if the Steelers can, prove again that they have a legitimate, top 3, top 2 defense, I think they can, fight for a spot in the playoffs and be one of the more lethal and dangerous teams to look out for. So,
yeah, and that was one of the better trades of last season, was trading for Minkah Fitzpatrick. I mean, when he joined, I think the first game he played, he had an interception, and he was forcing fumbles, just causing so much turnovers for them.
I think that was against us, against the Niners.
Oh, really? I think I was watching that game with my brothers. I'm not sure though. And then we didn't even bring up Devin Bush. He was just a rookie.
Oh yeah,
last season.
Yeah, linebacker.
He bursted on the scene quick. He could have been defensive rookie of the year. I mean, he could have been in talks with it. I know Bosa won, rightfully so, but you know what I mean. Like he could have been in top 5 voting. He probably was.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I see him going 8-8, 8-8, 10-6. They're kind of around that area. As far as the Browns, it's funny. Like you think about the Browns and you think they have so much just weapons, so many offensive weapons. Their defense is stacked, but for some reason they always disappoint. It's weird. I'm pretty sure, wasn't it last season? I think Max Kellerman had them going to the Super Bowl. Do you remember that? A bunch of people had them going to the Super Bowl. They overhyped them hard.
Yeah,
and honestly, you had to think. What was
that? Everyone did, but I feel like a big part of that was just the fact that they had no consistent leader in coaching. So
yeah,
it's going to be a big test for Kevin Stefanski to operate. Considering that the conditions right now. A lot of teams, not just Cleveland, are at a disadvantage with, if you're a team that has a new coach or a new quarterback, it's going to be hard to develop that chemistry, develop, the playbooks, and get out there to, work with the team. So, they're finding themselves at quite unfavorable odds. So, but they do have weapons, like you said. They're just they're very talented.
They have
on the book.
Landry, OBJ. They just got Austin Hooper.
Yeah.
But it comes down to he's going to be a rookie coach, and this isn't a good time to be a rookie coach right now, because even
it's not the division to be a rookie coach too.
Yeah, this is it's one of the tougher divisions. But with the situation right now, even if this situation, wasn't going on, there was no, COVID-19 or anything like that, it would still be really difficult for a new coach to come in, implement his own system, his own offense, all that. Even without this going on, it would still be hard, and it would take them a minute to, kind of pick it up. But with this whole thing going on, it might be a disaster, depending on how they utilize their Zoom meetings and all their virtual workouts, things like that. Depending on how they work with that, but like I said, they have tons of weapons. They drafted Grant Delpit, safety out of LSU. He was a good. I wanted us to get him too. He was really good, underrated, really, and one of the better offensive linemen in the draft. I think he was high top top five maybe. Jedrick Wills. I know a lot of teams wanted him, and so they want to protect Baker Mayfield. I mean, I know you can account for that the Niners and Browns game, he was getting eaten alive. I
Yeah,
think I remember. I remember Bosa. He sacks him, and then he remember back
planted the
in
flag.
yeah back in college when I think Baker he
Oklahoma.
took their flag and then planted it. He got him back. Yeah,
That was
I
sweet.
think the
That was sweet
Browns really.
revenge right there.
Yeah,
Kind of
I think the
childish,
Browns
but
really. It is what it
it's
is.
fun
I think the
game.
Browns really wanted to protect Baker this year.
Yeah, they did a good job.
But yeah,
They also getting picking up Jack Conklin
right.
for the
Yeah,
right
from the
tackle.
Titans. So they're really bolstering that offensive line. They're trying to be, I don't know, maybe top 10, something like that. That would really
Yeah,
help out Baker, giving him time.
yeah, to
And
operate in
then
the
they
pocket.
still have Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb is a beast. He could break
Hard.
off for a freaking 60-yard run at any point in the game. And then even before that, they got Kareem Hunt. He was
Yeah,
on the
so they're
Chiefs before. We played him twice. I know exactly what that guy does. He torches defenses, and he's good out of the backfield. You could pass it to him. He could take it 20 yards. All of that. So, like I said, they have tons of weapons. It's a matter of putting it together, and we haven't even really talked about that defense. Myles Garrett. I think
that
he's
is
coming
scary.
back. I know he
Yeah,
got
he's
suspended, but I'm
reinstated.
pretty sure. Yeah,
Very,
he's
very
uh
scary.
he's a beast. And they got
Yeah,
Carl Joseph from the Raiders. I think they signed him out of the free agency.
that's a
He's
nice
he's
little
really good
pickup.
too. Yeah, he's a thumper. He hits hard. He could come down
I
and he could lay somebody out. He's great in the run, but where he lacks in coverage is when he goes up against those big tight ends. That's when he's kind of left. If you leave him on an island against a big tight end, the chances are he's going to get beat. But if he's just in coverage, he's in a zone, I think he'll be good. And if he just comes down and lays a hit on the running back, that's where he's really, really best suited for. I remember in some games where it'd be like a goal line stance, and he would come down and lay out. I think it was Melvin Gordon one time, just laid him out. Didn't even let him get a yard. He's good at that type of stuff.
Yeah, but I wanted to add too. I think something that contributed to the underwhelming performance of Cleveland last season was their defensive back play, because they did suffer a couple of injuries to Greedy Williams and
Yeah,
Carl, or to Landry, or not Landry, Denzel Ward. Their high pick
oh
from
yeah,
Ohio State. So I think now with them back and healthy, they can kind of produce something similar to what San Francisco did last season, and add a lot of pressure up front, and then force a quarterback to make very errant throws, and then that's when the defensive backs can capitalize, and score, or get interceptions and just make a lot of tackles and break up passes. So I think a lot of things are coming together for Cleveland Browns, and I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that they're starting to build not off of hype, but just off of a good foundation now.
yeah.
They're bringing the right pieces together, and not just talent that you see on a piece of paper. They're actually developing it into something cohesive and directed towards a single goal. And I also think, too,
Right.
Baker Mayfield, despite all of his critics, this is his third season in the NFL. I feel like now he's at that semi-veteran, stage of his career where he can, really blossom and shed off. Like he was never a bust or considered a bust to begin with. But
Yeah,
I
he
think
he
now
had
he
a
can.
lot of high praise last season because he had a good rookie season. He almost took the
Yeah,
Browns to the playoffs, and then last season they got OBJ, and then the Super Bowl rumbling started happening, and it seemed like they just
yeah.
crumbled under the expectations, and injuries played a huge part in that too. Sometimes you just got to get lucky.
Yeah, I think I think Baker's in a good spot considering that all the gifts that he's been given by the front office with drafts and free agency. There shouldn't be any reason that he can't utilize the toys that he's been given. So
Yeah,
expect good things from this team going forward.
yeah. I have him going 6-10, just because I don't until I could trust them.
Optimist,
But you also have to look.
pessimist.
They play in a hard division in itself. I have the Steelers sweeping them. It's going to be tough games, but I think the Steelers are going to sweep them. I think their defense. I don't know if it's better, but I think it's more. What's the cohesive? They're more together. If that makes sense.
Besides the Bengals, how would you rank each of the remaining three's defenses? Whose defense would you least want to see? Even if it's
Like,
at your
who would
home
at
field.
least want to play?
Yeah, even if it's on your home field.
Ravens.
Yeah.
Has to be the Ravens. Because, I mean, you got to look. They have Judon. I'm pretty sure they have Pernell McPhee, Calais Campbell, Marcus Peters, Earl Thomas. Yeah, that's only 5 people. That's not even they're stacked. I would be quite terrified. And then on top of that, you got to go. You're playing Lamar Jackson already. You know what I mean? So he's going to put points up on you, and then you got to go out and try and you can't win shootouts on that defense.
Yeah, they're gonna be a scary team.
Yeah, you also what I saw was they play 2 tough divisions. They play their own, and they play the Cowboys, the Eagles, the Giants, and the Redskins. I don't think those are going to be easy games at all.
Maybe the Giants.
Cowboys, they play at home. I think the Giants are going to be. They might be shocks of people. It might be pretty good.
I don't see them as a dark horse team. Just the fact that they're also going to be at. I'm not on the Daniel Jones train, but that'll be for a later discussion.
Yeah, they play the Cowboys. They play in Dallas, so I don't. It's pretty hard to go win in Jerry World. Regardless, then they play the Eagles at home. I think the Eagles are going to be a good team. If Carson Wentz is healthy, I would take Carson Wentz over Baker Mayfield. The defense for the Eagles,
I don't believe
Browns
in
defense over the Eagles, and then they go play the Giants. That's no way game. And the thing about the Giants and the Jets, people don't realize is, well, yeah, because it's an AFC team. So when you go play the Giants and the Jets, and you're not prepared, that could turn out all bad for the opponent. You could get eaten alive just off the weather and the conditions out there. It's almost like going to Denver and playing in Denver. It's super hard to play in Denver with the velocity out there. Is it velocity? I'm trying to think of the word. What's the word I'm thinking of?
Altitude?
It's something to do the altitude, yeah. Playing out there, you get tired real quick.
Yeah.
And I think when you play the Jets and the Giants, that's why I have them losing both those games. Now, they're back to back, so it could be different. They could possibly beat the Jets, even if they lose to the Giants, because they'll be in the same area, you know what I mean? So they got to break there. They don't have to go out there and then go back home and then go right back out there. So they're back out there. They're acclimated to it. But I have them going 6-10. They could go between 6 and 8 wins, in my opinion. It really depends on how Baker does too. Let's see. And you said the Bengals were dead last.
Yeah, but 5-11. But seeing by your patterns, you might give them 2 wins.
You're not far off. I had them going 4-12. I mean,
okay.
I could probably find another win in there, maybe like an upset. And I'm sure when the season starts, we can do upset alerts.
They have I think Joe Burrow might be able to do shootouts. I can see him doing shootouts and not having to depend on the defense to get a stop. I feel like, Joe might be hungry enough to want to, I can take over the game by myself, So I think he'll be prepared for the challenge even if he's a rookie.
Yeah. I mean, he makes all the throws. He can scramble too. I mean, who they have under center? Andy Dalton, he couldn't scramble. And then they had I can't remember their backup. I can't remember his name, but Burrow can definitely scramble and make a play happen out of nothing. But I mean, they got Joe Burrow, they got T. Higgins. Huh?
It says right here that the backup quarterback for the Bengals is Ryan Finley.
That's who I thought that's who it was, but I didn't want to get the name wrong. But yeah, he didn't scramble much. He did show up a little bit on some games though, made some good throws. But he's definitely not Joe Burrow. But they got him. They got T. Higgins.
They have Tyler Boyd.
He was high. T. Higgins was pretty high on some boards before the combine and everything happened. But I remember before draft time even came, throughout the season, all the mock drafts and stuff, T. Higgins was in the first round, pretty around the 10s to 20 ranges, But their schedule, I could see maybe like an upset or two, but they play the Ravens. They're gonna get swept by the Ravens. I have them beating the Chargers because it's the home game. I have them actually beating the Los Angeles Chargers at home because
that depends. Who's going to be the quarterback for the Chargers?
Exactly, that's true.
I'll say that for another show.
Yeah, but I mean, if it's, what is it, Tyrod Taylor? I don't know. And the Bengals defense isn't horrible.
They have pretty good.
It's not
terrible.
Pretty
decent staff. Geno Atkins, anchoring the defensive line. Dunlap on the left. DJ Reader. It's pretty good up front. Their backfield. With Mackenzie Alexander, Sean Williams, Will Jackson. We'll see how they do, but not total scrubs on their. The
Chargers defense is stacked, but I have them picking up a win just because it's a new quarterback, even though he was a backup. But it's going to be a new quarterback, regardless if it's Taylor or Herbert, and I think they're going to come out and swinging out the gate. It's going to be a home game. They're going to be so excited because Joe Burrow's playing, and there's going to be so much hype just in that fan base. And then I have them losing 2 in a row. So the Browns and Eagles. And then they go on, they play the Jaguars. I have them winning. They go to Jacksonville and win. Because honestly, in my opinion, if Gardner Minshew didn't have the mustache, he would not have as much hype as he has now. Let's be real. He shaves the mustache, the hype is gone. Even though he did drive down the field and freaking beat the Raiders in their last home game, but I'm not going to get into that. Then I have them dropping 5 in a row. And then they go and they play the Redskins, and I have them winning that game. It's going to be Joe Burrow versus Dwayne Haskins.
Yeah, but Washington, I think they're another team to watch out for because of their defense, now that they have Chase Young, but, we'll get to that.
Yeah, exactly. I just think they're going to be losing so much. There's going to be a trap game, you know what I mean? And at some point, when they go home to the Giants, they lose. And then it's possible Tua Tagovailoa will be the starting quarterback for the Dolphins when they play them in Miami. And guess what? They pick up the W. It's going to be a slap to the face. Then they go to the Cowboys, they lose, and they basically lose 4 in a row, and they end the season 4-12. But it's going to be a promising 4-12. And then I could see them going out and getting – who's that? There's another wide receiver for – I think it was LSU, who's something Chase. Yeah, his last name's Chase, but he's supposed to be super good. I could see him going out and getting him, bolstering that wide receiver corps, especially if AJ Green either retires or goes to a different team. Well, that's what I have. I have the Ravens, Steelers, Browns, and then Bengals. But Steelers and Browns could switch easily. I mean, that's how close they could be. But honestly, I don't see them competing with the Ravens. The Steelers might be able to compete with the Ravens just because the Steelers, as long as they've had that rivalry, been in the same division, all that, the Steelers and Ravens they've been pretty neck and neck.
Yeah.
And the times they play they're always usually some important games. But that's the AFC North, wrapping that up. And then we're going to go on to the AFC South. So what do you have for that?
Now for the AFC South, it's not a division that, intrigues me a lot. And, there's not a lot of, there's some storylines going on it. You have the Texans, you have the Colts, you have the Jaguars, and you have the Titans. The Cinderella story of last season, Tennessee making it to, a possible Super Bowl. But
AFC Championship.
Yeah.
They had the lead, too. They had the lead, and they ended up getting blown out. But it's going to be just like the Texans had the lead.
Yeah, so first I have the Indianapolis Colts winning the division. For some reason, I really believe in Frank Reich. No matter who the quarterback is, which is now Phillip Rivers, proven gunslinger, prone to mistakes, not athletic, but is able to, get in a shootout with, pretty good weapons, like
you got T.Y., I think. T.Y. Hilton.
Yeah, T.Y. Hilton.
Doyle. They lost Eric Ebron.
You have
Marlon Mack.
Mm-hmm. So, they have a pretty good team, and it's a pretty, fairly easy division to play in considering, the opponents you face. So, winning their division could be pretty simple for them. Or not as simple, but, pretty good. And also, they also added, USC. Yeah, they added USC wide receiver Michael Pittman from the draft, right?
Yeah, he was
so,
good.
I feel like he can be one of those, gems that, no one else was looking at. And their defense, too. They just got DeForest Buckner, so that's and they have Justin Houston.
Still have Justin Houston? Yeah, they have Justin Houston.
And they also got he's probably not going to be a starter, but a great addition too from the Niners too. They got Sheldon Day as a defensive tackle, and he's a really good run stopper. Their linebacker core is pretty good, led by Darius Leonard. Great tackler.
He was injured last season a little bit.
Yeah, and then their cornerback situation. They got Xavier Rhodes. They have Malik Hooker for free safety, so it's a pretty good team. Good.
Rhodes is Rhodes is a little iffy. It's like you don't know if he's going to be good or if he's still going to kind of.
Yeah, it's hard.
He
wasn't
hard to
doing
too good in Minnesota.
Yeah, so I see Indianapolis going I'll say 9-7. 10-6,
I have them around
9-7.
that. I had them
Next,
around 7 and 9 to 10.
Yeah.
But you didn't even talk
I-
about that offensive line. You didn't
Well,
talk about Quentin Nelson.
it speaks for itself.
He's a
It speaks
mauler.
for itself. So yeah, they already
That
have
dude,
the best.
He's shirtless in the snow, just running, doesn't even care. Headphones on, running sprints in the snow.
You don't need to mention their offensive line. They're going to protect Phillip Rivers, and they're going to do whatever it takes to push the D line downfield to help the running game and passing game. So Indianapolis is in a pretty good spot. And second, I have Tennessee Titans. They're still, I'm still out on that team because I feel like their Cinderella story was just nothing more than that, just a Cinderella story.
Yeah, I mean, the question is Ryan Tannehill going to show up? You know what I mean? Was it just, lightning in the bottle? Is that what he caught? Or is he truly, is he gonna, perform? I think did he get franchise tag or did he get a contract? I think he got a contract.
Yeah, he got paid.
Yeah, he got paid. So we're gonna see if he lives up to it or if he's, the same, Ryan Tannehill like in Miami.
He's probably not gonna meet.
I've always liked Tannehill.
I predict he's not gonna meet that expectation, but it's not like he's gonna underperform his contract like every quarterback who gets paid a lot does, but he's not gonna fail. I don't think he'll fail and reverse back to the label that people were giving him as a good potential bust. Especially with the weapons he has. He has pretty good weapons.
Here's what he has to do. This is his ultimate play. You ready? That's me throwing it to Derrick Henry.
That's a good impression of DeShone Kizer. I remember watching that Chicago Bears and Green Bay Packers game, and DeShone Kizer was just throwing garbage, and I was just imitating, the coach just telling DeShone, "Hey, DeShone, look, this is what you do." The running back. But with the Titans, I'm still iffy on them, but they do have a good team. AJ Brown, one of the best young receivers. Derrick Henry.
Well, he was in talks for Rookie of the Year.
Yeah. So Derrick Henry at the running back position. They're pretty good. They could battle it with the best of them offensively.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of can Tannehill decide to take over a game. That he's gonna need that killer mentality to take over instead of Well, it's okay to be a system quarterback, depending on the coach. But Tannehill, he's going to probably be asked to, go into those shootouts and try more.
Basically, what he needs to do is he needs to know that teams are going to stack the box because they're not going to let Derrick Henry beat him. They're going to make Tannehill beat him, and so Tannehill needs to do that. He has the weapons. He has AJ Brown. Even he could have Derrick Henry run a screen, something like that. But he has some weapons to where he can do that. It's just a matter of if he can do that. They lost Jarrell Casey on defense. He was good. And they just let him go for like nothing. Sent him to the Broncos. I'm not happy about that. But sent him to the freaking Broncos. But I have him going just kind of like the Colts. 8-8, 8-10 win range.
I say
for me it's a toss-up.
I say 8-8 as well. Yeah, maybe a 9-7, but realistically 8-8, 500 schedule. And let me check their strength of schedule.
Well, here's 4 teams they play. A whole division.
They're basically in the middle. Their schedule strength is basically 500, so an average schedule, not too hard, not too easy.
Yeah, they play the Vikings in Minnesota. That's gonna be hard.
Yeah.
Then they play the Bears. That's gonna be a tough game because that defense, the Bears defense, you have Khalil Mack coming at you, and now they just got.
It's just who's gonna have the better defense.
Robert Quinn. They just got Robert Quinn. Roquan Smith is coming back.
That game, I think it's just a matter of. I think that game specifically is just a matter of which quarterback can make the least amount of mistakes.
Yeah, I think the real question is who's going to be the quarterback. Is it going to be Nick Foles or is it going to be Mitch Trubisky?
Yeah.
Who knows? If it's Nick Foles, I think that the Titans lose that game because the Bears have Allen Robinson. They have Anthony Miller. He's good. Cohen, he's super fast. They could utilize him. But for me, it's that defense. I think that defense will shut down Derrick Henry and Tannehill because you think they have Eddie Jackson in the backfield, Kyle Fuller. Then they have Khalil Mack, Robert Quinn rushing the passer, Roquan Smith, great sideline to sideline linebacker. It'd be really tough for Tannehill to overcome that. And we're not even done there. They play the Packers in Green Bay. Granted, that's towards the end of the season, so it's very possible they could be playing a Packers team that they're already in the playoffs, so they sit their starters. Aaron Rodgers might not start that game. But it still might be very cold out there in Green Bay. It could snow.
I could see them. I could see them winning in Green Bay. I could see them upsetting Aaron Rodgers and coming in Green Bay. I just don't see the Green Bay Packers as a legitimate threat to anyone right now, despite having one of the greatest quarterbacks ever. But he's in the back end of his career right now.
Yeah. Well, who knows?
It's not like
you could see Jordan Love.
Yeah, so it depends on what coach, what's his name?
LaFleur.
Yeah, what coach LaFleur decides to do at the quarterback position. It's going to be Aaron Rodgers, but things can happen.
I think it probably will. But if they're in the playoffs, I can see them throwing in Jordan Love for that game. But I have them losing to the Packers and the Lions. They play the Lions. I have them winning that game, but I'm a little iffy on it because the Lions could be pretty good. I know they just lost Darius Slay, but Matthew Stafford's he's still a good quarterback. Galladay,
one of the more underrated. Yeah, with the weapons that Matthew Stafford has, they're one of those teams that a lot of people count them out, but they can be spoilers for a lot of teams,
Yeah. Well, and two, the Titans, they play the Ravens. They play the Steelers, the Broncos, who people are really high on. Those will be some tough games.
Yeah.
And they play the Texans. Honestly, the Texans have beaten the Titans a lot of times that they've played. I think that last season, if Deshaun Watson played that game, I don't think the Titans would have won that game. I feel like the Texans had the Titans' number sometimes. You know what I mean? So I was super iffy on if I would have the Texans sweeping the Titans or I had them splitting. I really couldn't decide. And that's why I had them around the 8 to 9 range, still at the top of the division. That's how close that the top of this division is. But then we get into the Texans. So what do you have for the Texans? Former loss, DeAndre freaking Hopkins.
Yeah, no, I have the Texans going last in their division. No, I'm just kidding. The Texans, I see them tying for second in their division. If not, I could see them. Wow. Yeah, in best case scenario, I could even see them winning their own division. Because I could see it. Despite all the dysfunction that's going on in their organization with trading DeAndre Hopkins and whatever they did in free agency and the draft, point blank and simple.
Randall Cobb, David Johnson, Brandon Cooks. Those are new pieces that they added. The question is, are you getting a good David Johnson? Is David Johnson, going to be what he used to be, or is he going to be what he's kind of been? You know what I mean? That's why the Cardinals gave him away.
What they did in the offseason it's not pretty. It's not expected because they got a lot of old pieces, but and lost a lot of franchise players. But I think with the level of play that Deshaun Watson is doing, I feel like he can elevate even the most oldest of the players they have. Even they still have, like you said, they still have Wolf Fuller, Kenny Stills, but incorporating Cobb and Cooks, it's a nice pickup, but it's not going to be the difference maker.
You
The difference maker
basically traded DeAndre Hopkins for 2 slot wide receivers.
Yeah, they don't really have a deep threat outside of Will Fuller.
Well, Brandon Cooks, he can go deep. He's fast. He can get deep, but
I feel like they're going to rely.
Have those two.
I feel like they're going to rely heavily on the passing game. They're running, their backfield are just it's just not like, I don't believe David Johnson's going to be able to bounce back from his injuries. He was a star. A few years ago in Arizona.
He had 1,000 rushing, 1,000 receiving one time, something like that.
Yeah, over that. So he's a very good dual threat, but with his injury history, I don't see him, regaining his former self. They have Duke Johnson, pretty good backup, but I don't see him doing enough damage to defenses. And then Houston's, defense.
Their defense. They got Gary Conley from the Raiders. He was formidable, but he can get beat, and he could pass interfere for sure.
Yeah, they have pretty good, Bradley Roby.
Still have J.J. Watt.
Hopefully he, I'm excited to see J.J. Watt.
A lot, though.
Yeah, but whenever he's on the field, he offenses, look alive.
Definitely.
He makes.
Do they still have what's their defensive tackle? Is it Whitney Merciless?
Oh, they still have Merciless, but he's a linebacker.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they still have Merciless.
They just signed.
Eddie Vander does. Angela Blackson.
No. He was I forget. Maybe it was a defensive end.
Ross Blacklock?
No.
Did they pick him up in free agency?
No, I think they just re-signed him to a long-term deal, to a longer deal.
Yeah. I can see the Texans, tying up with the Titans for a second. I don't see them going into the playoffs, but I can, if they do go into the playoffs, it's because they got a very hot streak, somewhere in the season.
They've done that before where they've gone 0-5 and then won 10 in a row, and then they got waxed in the playoffs. But they've done that before. But let me tell you the first 4 games on their schedule. They got the Chiefs, then they got the Ravens, and then they got the Steelers in Pittsburgh, and then they got the Vikings. That might be 4 losses right off.
I say 1-3 in that stretch. 1-3. I feel like they could dig out a win.
Maybe against the Steelers.
Yeah.
Or the Vikings, maybe I could see. I don't see it against the Ravens and the Chiefs. Even because we've seen it. We saw Deshaun go up against the Chiefs and was up by 20 something, and then the Chiefs come storming back. But they also did beat the Chiefs in the regular season.
Oh yeah.
It is going to be in Kansas City though.
Mm.
Then it gets a little bit easier. They have the Jags and then the Titans, which I was iffy on. It's going to be in Tennessee, but it's going to be an away game. But the Texans kind of have the Titans number. But we'll see how that plays out. And then they go play the Packers, which I know you don't think they'll be that good, but I think the Packers are they'll probably be, 12-4, 13-3 range. I could definitely see that.
Is it a home game?
The Smith brothers. It's going to be a home game for the Texans.
Okay. I don't see Bill O'Brien's
Jaire
genius.
Alexander.
I don't see Bill O'Brien's genius overcoming Aaron Rodgers' clutch play in that game. So I'll give the Packers a win for that.
Yeah. Then they go play at the Jaguars. I have them winning that. They go to Cleveland, play the Browns. I don't think they'll win that game. Here's another one I'm kind of iffy on. I don't really know because Tom Brady's not there anymore. They play the Patriots home game. I'm iffy on it. I don't know. I have them winning it, but they could lose it. I don't know. Because
that's a big question mark team.
Good.
Like it's good. That's one of the biggest storylines coming into the season that we'll probably talk about later is who is going to win the breakup between Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. Who's going to be what's going to decide who actually was the main part of their dynasty? Most people will say Tom Brady, but we'll save that for later.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even before Tom Brady, Belichick was winning. So we'll see what happens afterwards. If Jared Stidham is like Jimmy Garoppolo-esque, then this could work out really well for them. And he doesn't even have to be lights out. All he has to do is keep them in games because of that defense. And then they play the Lions in Detroit. I have them winning that game. They play the Colts at home, division game. I think they pull it out. Then they go to Chicago later in the season. That's going to be an L because it's about to be super cold out there. It's hard to go out there and win, especially depending on how their running game is. If they have no running game, then it's going to be a wrap. The Bears are going to eat them up, especially that defensive line. And then they go to the Colts. They lose that game, which I'm still iffy about, even though it's going to be in Indianapolis. They play the Bengals. I see that as a win. And then they have a home game against the Titans, and that's a win. So I have them basically going anywhere from 6-10 to 7-9, kind of. And they would be third in the division. And that would bring us to
Jacksonville.
The Jacksonville Jaguars. Gardner Minshew mania. What do you got?
I feel like I'm going to be really harsh on them, but I see them going 2-14, 3-13.
2-14.
Yeah, I feel like they're going to be one of those teams that are going to be, playing for a spot, but for a number one pick. It's just going to. I feel like it's just going to be a disappointing season, and they're just going to have to rebuild and
right.
just starting with the fact that they lost, their heart and soul and Calais Campbell. That,
and then they got
that defense.
Ngakwe.
That defense is going. Yeah, that defense. It's still pretty good. They have Joe Schober a linebacker. Yannick and
Ngakwe got him out of free agency.
Defensive end. They're not that bad on defense. But
Josh Allen.
I feel like it's just not going to be enough to overcome their schedule. I don't see Gardner Minshew reproducing the results that he had his rookie season, and I don't see Leonard Fournette breaking out as a running back. He's just Fournette. He's just. I mean, I feel like he's just going to disappoint. So it's going to be a very, very bad season for them. I just see them, trying to compete for. I feel like they will compete every game, but I just think they're not going to be competitive, or like the score is just not going to show competitiveness. So I say 3-13.
You look at it, they still have Leonard Fournette. Then you have Gardner Minshew, and he had flashes last season, and he came back and won some games. But also the defense is pretty good. It kept him in some games. But even with Yannick wants out. He's expressed his frustration. He wants a trade. He's been trying to get out. He even had a run-in with the owner's son, something like that on Twitter. They went at it. He said he does not want to be there anymore. They had Brian Burns I think, do they have Brian Burns, or was that Carolina that has Brian Burns? But they have Josh Allen. They just got Caleb Chase on, he's a defensive end, which they already have two pretty good defensive ends. If Josh Allen plays defensive end, I'm not 100% sure if he does that or if he's a linebacker. But they have the pieces on defense, and they also did just get rid of A.J. Boye. He's a good corner, sent it to the freaking Broncos. So, I don't know. They have a pretty, I wouldn't say rough schedule, but it's not, it's not too easy. They play the Packers, the Bears. Let's see.
Yeah, they have a fairly pretty easy schedule. They're in the bottom half of strength.
Yeah. So. Well, even too, you got to think, do they want to, if Gardner Minshew isn't the guy, do they want to tank for Trevor Lawrence or say Justin Fields? You know what I mean?
Yeah, the next
and they'll know pretty soon.
Quarterback is pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I have them going 3-13, 4-12, kind of where you're at, over under 4 wins. But there's a few that I'm like, they could win it, like the Bengals. They could win or lose that game. You know what I mean? It's going to be in Cincinnati against Joe Burrow, but I think it's going to be a defensive game for the Jaguars. I don't know if Minshew wants to get into a shootout with Joe Burrow. I think Burrow's meant for those type of games. Then I have it's a toss-up against the Titans in Jacksonville. If they win or lose that game, I'm back and forth on it. And you got to think there could be games where Leonard Fournette just absolutely goes off because he has those games. He goes off and then he kind of quiets down like the next week or something like that.
Yeah, I see him as
a force, and they'll be good.
I see him as like a poor man's Adrian Peterson. With the build he has. I know it's not a horrible comparison. It's not a bad player comp, but it's just the fact that what was he selected? Top 3, top 4 in the draft? In this draft, he hasn't really mounted to much. So,
they had that one season where they were really good.
Yeah. Plus, I feel like Doug Marrone. He's gonna trust Gardner to pass less and run the ball more. So that's gonna give Leonard
if they stack a lot of opportunities. They really
at the same time too, I see Leonard Fournette. I feel like I'm gonna predict an injury for Leonard. I feel like he's gonna miss at least 3 games in the season.
Dang, predicting injuries? That's messed up. I guess I did predict that J.J. Watt might get injured. He gets injured almost every season. Great player.
Yeah, there's a lot of injury prones. But then again, I feel like with this upcoming season too, I feel like players are going to be like, can you imagine the NFL season, like just watching a game now that, with social distancing and fear of contracting a virus by touch, a very physical sport like football,
Fournette might run for 100 every game.
What if Roger Goodell just, instead of canceling the season, all right, we have to go to 2-hand touch or flag football now.
Oh, they're gonna play Sarcastaball.
Yeah,
you guys don't know what Sarcastaball is. Look it up. Just type in South Park Sarcastaball. You will laugh for sure.
Yeah.
What's funny is I think were they kneeling in that episode? Do you remember?
No.
Maybe they weren't.
But
that was probably a different episode.
Yeah, they took their stance in sports by showing an obscene part of their body.
Yeah.
The boys. But the 2 divisions we covered pretty obvious for the most part compared to other divisions.
Some will be easier, some will be, you're not really sure. Like with the South, I'm not sure. It could be the Titans or the Colts. The Texans come out and shock everybody. and go 10-6 because they've done that before. You know, Brandon Cooks isn't a terrible wide receiver. Randall Cobb isn't a terrible wide receiver. He's old, but he's not terrible. And you still got Will Fuller. He was injured. He's a pretty big deep threat. And if you really traded DeAndre Hopkins for a good, healthy David Johnson and he comes out and he performs, and you give Deshaun Watson a running game, you know, he could scramble, he could make every throw. They could shock some people. But I think that about wraps it up. So next week we're gonna do the West and East, right?
Yep.
AFC West and East.
Talk about your team.
That should be a fun one. That
might be a lengthy one.
I have the Raiders going 17-0 this year. Just kidding. But thank you guys if you're watching. Hope you and your family stay safe, and I just hope you guys have a great weekend. See you next time.